First contact. Major Sarah Chen stood at the window of the International Space Station's observation module, gazing at the familiar blue marble of Earth below. Christmas Eve had always been her favorite time of year, but spending it 250 miles above the planet's surface wasn't quite how she'd imagined celebrating this year. The gentle hum of the station's life support systems provided a soothing backdrop as she sipped her rehydrated coffee from a sealed pouch. Still brooding about missing the holidays with your family? Dr. Marcus Rodriguez floated over to join her, his salt and pepper hair floating weightlessly around his head. The astrobiologist had been her closest friend during their 6-month mission. Just thinking about my daughter's face when she opens her presents tomorrow morning, Sarah replied, managing a small smile. Thank goodness for video calls. The conversation was interrupted by a sudden flash of light that illuminated the entire observation module. Sarah's coffee pouch slipped from her fingers, floating away forgotten as both astronauts pressed themselves against the reinforced glass windows. What in the world? Marcus whispered. The source of the light became apparent as a massive object emerged from what appeared to be a tear in space itself. The vessel, and there was no doubt it was a vessel, was unlike anything human engineers had ever conceived. Its surface seemed to shift and flow like liquid metal, yet maintained a distinct crystalline structure that caught and reflected the sun's rays in prismatic patterns. Station, this is Houston, the comm system crackled to life. Are you seeing what we're seeing? Sarah pulled herself to the communication console. Affirmative, Houston. We have visual contact with an unidentified object. Approximate size estimate. She glanced at Marcus, who was already calculating on his tablet. Based on relative scale to known orbital objects, I'd estimate it at roughly 2 kilometers in length, he reported, his voice steady despite the unprecedented situation. 2 kilometers confirmed, Houston, Sarah relayed. Object appears to be of artificial origin and is maintaining geosynchronous orbit approximately 100 kilometers from our position. The next few hours were a blur of activity as the ISS crew documented everything they could about the mysterious visitor. More ships began emerging from similar spatial tiers around the globe, dozens, then hundreds. Earth's major space agencies and military forces were scrambling to respond, but there was little they could do except watch and wait. At exactly 1800 hours GMT, every electronic device on Earth and in orbit simultaneously activated. Screens displayed the same message in all languages: we are the Vex'kar. Your world has been chosen. Prepare for harvesting. The message sent shockwaves through human civilization. In the ISS, Sarah and Marcus watched helplessly as smaller craft began descending through Earth's atmosphere. The invasion had begun. Dr. Emily Watson was closing up her small veterinary clinic in rural Montana when the message appeared. Her hands trembled as she read it, but years of handling emergency situations helped her maintain her composure. She quickly called her teenage son, Jake. Mom, are you seeing this? Jake's voice was tense but controlled, he'd inherited her steady nature. I'm heading home now, Emily assured him. Stay inside and dash. A deafening roar cut through the evening air. Emily ran outside just in time to see a massive ship passing overhead, its metallic surface reflecting the Christmas lights that decorated the small town's main street. The contrast between the cheerful holiday decorations and the alien vessel was surreal. In New Delhi, Captain Raj Patel of the Indian Air Force was already airborne when the messages appeared. His squadron had been scrambled at the first signs of the anomalies in orbit. Now, as he pushed his Su-30 MKI to its limits, he watched in disbelief as the alien craft descended through the clouds. All squadrons, maintain distance and do not engage, came the order from command. I repeat, do not engage. Raj gripped his controls tighter, fighting every instinct that told him to attack these invaders. But as he observed their movements, he noticed something odd. The ships weren't attacking, they were establishing a pattern, creating a grid across the sky. Meanwhile, in the bustling metropolis of Lagos, Nigeria, Dr. Yinka Ademola was in her laboratory at the Nigerian Institute of Physics when everything changed. As one of the world's leading quantum physicists, she immediately recognized that the spatial tiers defied everything we knew about physics. "Professor, look at these readings." Her research assistant, Thomas, called out. The instruments were detecting unprecedented levels of quantum fluctuations. Yinka was already recording everything she could. The way they're manipulating spacetime, it's not just advanced technology, it's a fundamental understanding of physics we haven't even theorized yet. As Christmas Eve progressed, the alien ships established their grid pattern across the globe. In every major city and remote location, humanity waited in fear for the harvesting to begin. But instead of immediate violence, the Vex'kar ships remained stationary, emitting a low-frequency hum that seemed to resonate with the Earth itself. In orbit, Chen made a startling observation. "Marcus, look at these energy readings. They're not just establishing a grid, they're creating some kind of field around the entire planet." Marcus studied the data on his tablet. "It's like they're scanning. But on a planetary scale. The energy signature suggests they're penetrating deep into the Earth's crust. But what are they looking for?" Sarah wondered aloud. The answer came from an unexpected source. In her Montana clinic, Emily Watson was reviewing old X-rays when she noticed something strange. The backup generator was keeping her equipment running, and as she compared scans from before and after the aliens arrived, she saw subtle changes in the bone density patterns. Similar observations were being made around the world. Patel's instruments detected unusual fluctuations in the electromagnetic fields surrounding living organisms. In Lagos, Yinka Ademola's quantum measurements revealed patterns that suggested the aliens were particularly interested in the building blocks of life itself. As night fell across different time zones, the Vex'kar ships began emitting brilliant streams of light that connected their grid points. The effect was beautiful but terrifying. Earth was being wrapped in a web of alien energy. Chen watched from above as the network of light spread across her home planet. The pattern reminded her of neural networks, as if the aliens were turning Earth into some kind of giant computational system. In the ISS's laboratory module, Marcus made a breakthrough. "Sarah, look at this. The energy field, it's not just scanning, it's attempting to modify the fundamental properties of organic matter." Before Sarah could respond, a new message appeared: Phase 1 complete. Compatibility assessment, negative. Beginning species optimization protocol. The implications were clear: the Vex'kar weren't just invading Earth. They were planning to change life itself. As Christmas Eve turned to Christmas Day across the time zones, humanity faced its greatest challenge. The gifts wrapped under trees were forgotten as families huddled together, watching the alien lights paint the sky. In the space station, in the skies over India, in laboratories and clinics across the world, those who understood the most about what was happening began to realize that humanity's only hope lay in understanding and potentially disrupting whatever process the Vex'kar had initiated. Chen looked down at Earth, its surface now crisscrossed with alien light, and made a decision. "Houston, this is Major Chen. I think I know what they're doing, and I have a plan. But you're not going to like it." As she began explaining her theory, more Vex'kar ships emerged from spatial tiers, carrying strange equipment that could only be meant for their optimization protocol. The battle for humanity's future was about to begin, and the outcome would depend on the unlikely collaboration of people across the globe: a soldier in space, a veterinarian in Montana, a pilot in India, and a physicist in Nigeria, among countless others. The Christmas Eve invasion was just the beginning. The real question was, could humanity give the aliens a holiday they'd never forget? The optimization protocol. Dawn broke over Montana, but the sun's light was distorted by the web of alien energy that now encased the Earth. Dr. Emily Watson had spent the night analyzing biological samples, and what she discovered terrified her. The Vex'kar's energy field was already causing subtle changes in cellular structures. "Jake, "Bring me another slide," she called to her son, who had been helping her document the changes. The 17-year-old rushed over with the prepared specimen, a drop of his own blood. Under the microscope, Emily could see it happening in real time. The cells were being restructured at a molecular level, but not in a way that seemed immediately harmful. Instead, they were becoming more efficient. "Mom, look at this," Jake said, pointing to his tablet. He'd been monitoring social media and news reports from around the world. People were reporting strange sensations, increased energy, heightened senses, improved memory. The Vex'kar's optimization was already beginning. In Lagos, Dr. Yinka Ademola was observing similar phenomena on a quantum level. The aliens' technology wasn't just modifying biology, it was altering the very way organic matter interacted with quantum fields. "It's like they're trying to upgrade us," Thomas mused as they reviewed the data. "No," Yinka corrected, her voice grave. "They're trying to make us compatible with something. The question is, compatible with what?" The answer came from above. In the International Space Station, Major Sarah Chen and Dr. Marcus Rodriguez had been tracking changes in the alien energy grid when they noticed a pattern in the spatial tiers. "They're not random," Sarah explained to Houston Control. "The tiers are appearing in a sequence, and based on the energy signatures, they're getting bigger. I think they're preparing to bring something massive through." Her theory was confirmed when the largest spatial tear yet appeared over the Pacific Ocean. The object that emerged dwarfed all previous Vex'kar ships. It was a structure rather than a vessel, a massive floating city that defied physics as humans understood them. Captain Raj Patel had been ordered to observe the new arrival from a safe distance. His fighter's sensors were overwhelmed by the readings from the structure. Base, the object appears to be growing. It's not just big, it's expanding. The floating city was indeed growing, extending crystalline structures downward toward the ocean's surface. Where they touched the water, the liquid began to change, becoming something else entirely, a substance that flowed upward against gravity, feeding into the alien structure. In Montana, Emily made a connection. The cellular changes, the quantum modifications, they're not trying to optimize us for our world. They're preparing us for theirs. She quickly established a video conference with other scientists who had been studying the phenomena, including Yinka in Lagos. As they shared their findings, a horrifying picture emerged. The Vex'kar weren't invading Earth, they were transforming it, along with every living thing on it, into something that could exist in their dimension. The alien city growing over the Pacific was just the beginning. Soon, similar structures began emerging around the globe. The process was beautiful but terrifying, crystalline architectures that seemed to exist in more dimensions than humans could perceive, growing like geometric flowers in the sky. In orbit, Sarah Chen received a transmission from the Vex'kar. Unlike the previous messages, this one came with visual contact. The alien that appeared on her screen was both familiar and impossibly strange, a being of crystalline structure that somehow flowed like liquid, its form shifting between states of matter that shouldn't have been able to coexist. "Your species shows promise," the being communicated, not through sound but directly into her mind. "The optimization will allow you to transcend your current limitations. Resistance is unnecessary and inefficient." Sarah maintained her composure, years of military training kicking in. "And if we refuse this optimization?" The alien's form rippled. "Refusal indicates incompatibility. Incompatible elements will be recycled." The threat was clear. Meanwhile, the changes were accelerating. In Lagos, Yinka's instruments detected a massive surge in quantum activity. The Vex'kar's energy grid was beginning phase 2 of their protocol. People around the world began experiencing more dramatic changes. In Montana, Emily watched in horror as patients brought to her clinic began developing crystalline growths on their skin. The transformations were painless but inexorable. Jake, who had been helping treat the affected animals and people, made a crucial observation. "Mom, look at this. The changes, They're not affecting everyone and everything the same way. Some seem more resistant than others. Emily quickly confirmed her son's discovery. Certain individuals, both human and animal, were showing natural resistance to the optimization process. Something in their genetic makeup was fighting back against the alien modifications. In India, Raj Patel noticed something similar in himself. While his fellow pilots reported strange sensations and physical changes, he remained unaffected. His squadron had been tasked with monitoring the growing alien structures, and he realized that the crystalline growths seemed to recoil slightly when he flew too close. "Dr. Watson," he said during an emergency international video conference, "I think some of us might be naturally incompatible with their technology." The revelation sparked hope, but also raised the stakes. If some humans were naturally resistant to the Vex'kar's changes, would the aliens make good on their threat to recycle them? The answer came sooner than expected. New ships descended from the floating cities, different from the previous vessels. These were clearly combat units, their crystalline structures formed into weapons arrays. They're targeting population centers with high concentrations of resistant individuals, Yinka reported, watching the patterns of deployment. They're going to eliminate anyone who can't be optimized. In the space station, Sarah Chen made a desperate decision. During her communication with the Vex'kar, she had noticed something, a vulnerability in their seemingly perfect system. The spatial tiers, she explained to Marcus. They're not just doorways, they're keeping the Vex'kar connected to their home dimension. That's why they need to optimize us and our world. They can't exist fully in our reality without maintaining that connection. Marcus caught on quickly. If we could disrupt those tiers, we might be able to trap them here, in a form they can't maintain, Sarah finished. But we'd need a way to affect quantum fields on a massive scale. In Lagos, Yinka Ademola was already working on a solution. Her team had been studying the Vex'kar's quantum manipulation technology, and they had discovered that Earth's magnetic field could be used to create interference patterns. If we could generate a strong enough electromagnetic pulse, synchronized globally, she proposed during the emergency conference, we'd need every power station, every military installation, every piece of compatible technology working in perfect harmony, Raj added. Emily Watson, looking at the cellular data she'd gathered, provided the missing piece. The crystalline structures they're creating, they're like amplifiers. If we could reverse the energy flow. As Christmas Day continued, the resistance to the Vex'kar's optimization protocol took shape. While some of humanity was being transformed into crystalline hybrids, others fought to maintain their original form and find a way to stop the aliens' plans. The floating cities continued to grow, their impossible architectures reaching toward each other across continents. The Vex'kar's combat units began their systematic elimination of resistant individuals. And in laboratories, military bases, and even small-town clinics around the world, those who remained fully human worked against time to find a way to turn the aliens' own technology against them. Sarah Chen, watching from orbit as her world was transformed below, knew they had only one chance to get it right. The question was, could they pull it off before the optimization protocol reached its final phase? The resistance rises. As Christmas Day faded into evening across the globe, the transformed sky cast an otherworldly light through the crystalline structures that now dominated Earth's atmosphere. In the small town of Bozeman, Montana, Dr. Emily Watson's veterinary clinic had become an unlikely command center for what might be humanity's last chance at survival. The parking lot was filled with military vehicles, their communications equipment jury-rigged to interface with her medical devices. Jake, her son, had proven invaluable in helping configure the hybrid systems they needed to monitor the biological changes in both resistant and affected individuals. "Mom, look at this," Jake called out, gesturing to his modified tablet. "I've mapped the crystalline growth patterns across different species. There's definitely a correlation between genetic markers and resistance rates." Emily rushed over, her tired eyes widening as she analyzed the data. After 24 hours without sleep, she was running on adrenaline and black coffee, but her mind was sharp as ever. This is incredible, Jake. The resistance isn't random, it's linked to specific genetic variations that affect quantum field interaction at the cellular level. Their discovery was interrupted by the arrival of a sleek Indian Air Force fighter jet, landing on the hastily cleared highway that served as a makeshift runway. Captain Raj Patel had flown halfway across the world to bring critical components they needed for their counterattack plan. Dr. Watson, Raj greeted as he climbed down from his aircraft, carrying a sealed container. You'll want to see this. We managed to obtain samples from one of the downed Vex'kar combat units. The alien material inside the container was unlike anything they'd ever seen, a crystalline substance that seemed to exist in multiple states simultaneously. Under Emily's microscope, it shifted between solid and liquid forms, defying the laws of physics as humans understood them. This confirms our theory, Emily said, her voice tense with excitement. Their physical form isn't naturally compatible with our dimension. They're using the optimization protocol to reshape our reality to match theirs. In Lagos, Dr. Yinka Ademola was reaching similar conclusions. Her quantum physics lab, now protected by a hastily assembled force of Nigerian military units, had been working around the clock to understand the Vex'kar's technology. The spatial tiers aren't just portals, she explained during an emergency video conference with her global colleagues. They're anchor points, maintaining the quantum state that allows the Vex'kar to exist in our dimension. If we can disrupt them, we might be able to force them to exist fully in our reality. Sarah Chen's voice came through from the International Space Station. Where their form would be unsustainable. The ISS had become humanity's most important observation post. Sarah and Marcus had a unique vantage point to study the alien grid structure encompassing Earth. What they saw was both fascinating and terrifying. The crystalline cities aren't just growing anymore, Marcus reported, sending down his latest readings. They're starting to merge. If they complete the process, Earth will become a node in their dimensional network, Yinka finished. And everything on it will be converted to their form of existence. The Vex'kar seemed aware that some humans had discovered their vulnerability. Their combat units began targeting key scientific installations and military bases. In Lagos, Yinka's lab came under direct attack. They're trying to breach the quantum shielding. Thomas shouted as crystalline projectiles shattered against the hastily erected energy barrier they developed based on their study of alien technology. Yinka didn't look up from her calculations. Keep the shields up. We're close to a breakthrough on the resonance frequency. In Montana, Emily and Jake made another crucial discovery. The blood samples from resistant individuals contained a unique protein structure that seemed to naturally disrupt the Vex'kar's quantum field effects. If we could synthesize this on a large scale, Emily mused, we might be able to create a biological component for our counterattack. We'd need massive production capabilities, Jake pointed out. And a way to distribute it globally. The answer came from an unexpected source. Sarah Chen, observing the alien grid from orbit, noticed something about the Vex'kar's own distribution system. They're using the Earth's jet streams to spread their transformation catalyst. We could use the same delivery method. But time was running out. The number of fully human resistance fighters was dwindling as the optimization protocol continued its work. Those who weren't naturally resistant were being transformed into crystalline hybrids, their consciousness seemingly absorbed into some vast alien network. Raj Patel, who had been coordinating with military forces worldwide, reported a disturbing development. The transformed humans, they're not just changing physically. They're beginning to act with a hive mind mentality. And they're trying to capture those of us who are still resistant. The Vex'kar's true intention became clear when they sent another message, Phase 3 initiating. Collective integration beginning. Resistant units will be forcibly optimized or eliminated. In orbit, Sarah Chen watched in horror as new structures emerged from the spatial tiers, massive crystalline processors that began connecting with the transformed humans below. They're not just changing us physically, she realized. They're trying to upload human consciousness into their network. The Resistance's plan began to take shape. They needed to act on multiple fronts simultaneously, disrupt the spatial tiers, distribute the biological countermeasure, and prevent the Vex'kar from completing their consciousness upload network. Emily Watson, looking at her son as he worked tirelessly to synthesize more of the resistant protein structure, felt a fierce determination. "We're not just fighting for our bodies," she said. "We're fighting for our very identity as a species." In Lagos, Yinka Ademola's team finally achieved the breakthrough they needed. "We've mapped the quantum resonance pattern of the spatial tiers," she announced. "If we can generate a counterfrequency using Earth's magnetic field, we'll need to synchronize it perfectly," Sarah added from orbit. "One mistake and we could tear reality apart instead of just closing their portals." The pieces were in place, but executing their plan would require perfect coordination between military forces, scientific installations, and resistance cells worldwide. And they would have to act soon. The Vex'kar's optimization protocol was approaching its final stage. Raj Patel, preparing to lead a squadron of resistant pilots in a crucial part of the mission, summed up their situation. "When I was a kid, I always wondered what I'd get for Christmas. Never thought it would be a chance to save humanity's soul." As the resistance prepared for their counterattack, the transformed humans began gathering around the crystalline cities, their movements synchronized, their minds increasingly connected to the alien network. The final battle wouldn't just be fought with weapons and technology, it would be a fight for the very nature of human consciousness and identity. Sarah Chen, watching from humanity's last untouched outpost in space, gave the order that would begin their desperate plan: "All units, prepare for Operation Christmas Spirit. Let's show these aliens that humanity doesn't need optimization, we're perfect just the way we are." The next few hours would determine whether humanity would remain human or become part of the Vex'kar's crystalline collective. And as the resistance forces mobilized worldwide, they were about to demonstrate that sometimes the best Christmas presents are the ones you fight for. Operation Christmas Spirit. The crystalline cities floating above Earth's surface had begun to pulse with an intense light, their structures resonating with the approaching final phase of the optimization protocol. In the International Space Station, Major Sarah Chen watched as the massive alien network prepared to permanently alter human consciousness. "All resistance cells, this is Major Chen. Operation Christmas Spirit commences in 30 minutes. Synchronize your chronometers, now." Across the globe, the remaining human resistance fighters checked their equipment one last time. The plan was ambitious, perhaps impossible, but it was humanity's only hope. In Lagos, Dr. Yinka Ademola's quantum physics lab had become a fortress of improvised technology. The Nigerian military had reinforced her position with everything they could spare, knowing her role was crucial to the operation's success. "Quantum resonance generators at 70% capacity," Thomas reported, his fingers dancing across multiple keyboards. "The magnetic field modulators are responding exactly as predicted." Yinka nodded, her eyes fixed on the complex equations scrolling across her main screen. "Begin the power-up sequence for the field disruptors. We'll only get one chance at this." The lab's external sensors suddenly blared a warning. A massive force of transformed humans was approaching, their crystalline forms glinting in the alien light. Leading them was Professor Adams, Yinka's former mentor, now fully converted into a Vex'kar hybrid. "Dr. Ademola," Adams's voice came through their communications system, but it wasn't just his voice, it carried the resonance of thousands of connected minds. "The collective requires your resistance to end. Your quantum knowledge will be preserved and optimized. Join us willingly. Keep them back." Yinka ordered her security forces. "We need 10 more minutes." In Montana, Dr. Emily Watson and Jake had completed the synthesis of their biological countermeasure. The protein structure that naturally disrupted Vex'kar quantum fields had been successfully replicated and enhanced. "Final batch complete," Jake announced, securing the last container. "But Mom, look at this." He pointed to his tablet, showing new data from their ongoing analysis. The resistant protein, it's not just blocking their quantum effects. It's actually generating a counterfrequency. Emily's eyes widened as she understood the implications. It's not just resistance, it's natural human quantum resonance. We've had this ability all along, we just never knew it. She quickly shared this discovery with Sarah Chen and the other resistance leaders. If human consciousness naturally generated quantum fields that could disrupt Vex'kar technology, it explained why they needed to transform humans rather than simply eliminate them. Captain Raj Patel received this information as he led his squadron of resistant pilots toward their targets. Each fighter had been modified to carry dispersal units for Emily's countermeasure. All wings, maintain formation, he ordered, watching the massive crystalline cities loom ahead. Remember, we need to release the countermeasure at precisely the right altitude to catch the jet stream. But the Vex'kar weren't going to make it easy. Crystalline combat units rose to meet them, their weapons firing streams of energy that could transform matter on contact. Evasive maneuvers. Raj commanded. Don't let them touch you. The sky erupted in chaos as human fighters engaged alien vessels in a battle unlike any in Earth's history. The human pilots had one advantage: their natural quantum resonance disrupted the aliens' targeting systems, making them harder to hit. In orbit, Sarah Chen and Marcus Rodriguez prepared for their part of the operation. They had modified the ISS's solar panels to amplify Earth's magnetic field when Yinka activated her quantum disruption pulse. Sarah, Marcus said quietly as they worked, I need to tell you something. The calculations, if this works, the ISS won't survive the quantum backlash. Sarah paused, then continued her preparations. I know. But if we don't stop them here, there won't be a human race left to go home to. The Vex'kar seemed to sense the humans' plan. Their message echoed through all communication channels: your resistance is futile and harmful. The optimization will proceed. Your species will be elevated. In response, the resistance launched a coordinated attack on multiple fronts. Raja's squadrons began dispersing Emily's countermeasure into the jet stream while ground-based resistance cells activated electromagnetic pulse generators worldwide. The transformed humans, now part of the Vex'kar collective, launched a massive ground assault on key resistance positions. In Lagos, Yinka's lab came under intense attack as hybrid forces tried to breach their defenses. 4 minutes to full quantum pulse capacity. Thomas shouted over the sound of combat. Professor Adams's voice echoed through their communications again, your understanding is incomplete, Dr. Ademola. The collective offers transcendence. An end to individual suffering. Perfect unity. Unity without choice isn't perfection, Yinka responded, making final adjustments to her equipment. It's slavery. In Montana, Emily and Jake defended their position as transformed humans attempted to breach the clinic. The hybrid beings moved with unsettling coordination, their actions synchronized through their shared consciousness. Mom! Jake called out, monitoring their sensors. The countermeasure is spreading through the upper atmosphere. It's working, the transformation rate is slowing. But their success had consequences. The Vex'kar responded by accelerating their final phase. The crystalline cities began to merge faster, their energy output increasing exponentially. Sarah Chen watched from orbit as the alien network began its final configuration. All units, we're out of time. Yinka, we need that quantum pulse now. Quantum generators at maximum capacity, Yinka reported. But the calculations, at this power level, the pulse will affect everything, including us. It's a price we have to pay, Sarah responded. All resistant humans, prepare for quantum shock. This is going to hurt. The transformed humans suddenly stopped their attacks, their crystalline forms resonating with increasing intensity. Through their shared consciousness, the Vex'kar revealed their final move. If you will not accept optimization willingly, their collective voice announced, we will force your transcendence. Initiating mass consciousness transfer. Emily Watson watched in horror as the transformed humans began to dissolve, their physical forms breaking down as their consciousness was uploaded into the Vex'kar network. They're not just transforming humanity, she realized. They're harvesting us. Sarah Chen gave the final order, Yinka, initiate the pulse. Raj, release the remaining countermeasure. All resistant humans, brace for impact. As Yinka Ademola activated her quantum pulse generator, as Raj Patel's squadrons dispersed the last of the biological countermeasure, as Sarah Chen used the ISS to amplify Earth's magnetic field, no one knew exactly what would happen next. The quantum pulse erupted from Lagos, amplified by the ISS and carried through Earth's magnetic field. It collided with the Vex'kar's optimization field, creating a cascade of quantum effects that no one could have predicted. The sky itself seemed to tear apart as two fundamental forces of reality collided, the Vex'kar's multidimensional technology and humanity's natural quantum resonance, amplified to unprecedented levels. In the chaos that followed, one thing became clear: Christmas Day would end very differently than anyone, human or alien, had expected. A holiday to remember. The quantum pulse that erupted from Lagos rippled across the globe, carried by Earth's magnetic field and amplified by the International Space Station's modified solar arrays. As it collided with the Vex'kar's optimization field, reality itself seemed to shudder. Major Sarah Chen watched from the ISS as waves of quantum energy cascaded through the alien network. The crystalline cities began to vibrate at frequencies that shouldn't have been possible in normal spacetime. Marcus, she called out as the space station's structure groaned under the strain. Are you seeing these readings? Dr. Marcus Rodriguez was already analyzing the data streams. The pulse isn't just disrupting their network, it's forcing a quantum state collapse. The Vex'kar can't maintain their multidimensional existence. In Lagos, Dr. Yinka Ademola's laboratory had become the epicenter of a quantum storm. The very air seemed to crystallize and shatter repeatedly as two fundamentally different forms of reality battled for supremacy. The resonance cascade is exceeding all predicted parameters. Thomas shouted over the otherworldly howl of colliding quantum fields. Dr. Ademola, the containment field won't hold. Yinka's fingers flew across her controls, making split-second adjustments. It doesn't need to hold, it needs to channel. The human quantum resonance is amplifying itself through the Vex'kar's own network. The transformed humans, their consciousness partially uploaded into the alien network, began to experience something unprecedented. The quantum pulse was not just disrupting the Vex'kar's control, it was creating a bridge between individual human consciousness and the alien collective. In Montana, Dr. Emily Watson and Jake witnessed this phenomenon firsthand. The hybrid beings attacking their clinic suddenly stopped, their crystalline forms flickering as two forms of consciousness warred within them. "Mom, look!" Jake pointed to his monitors. "The protein structure we synthesized, it's not just blocking the transformation. It's actually helping the transformed humans maintain their individual identities within the collective." Emily quickly understood the implications. It's not just resistance, it's resilience. Human consciousness is naturally resistant to collective absorption because of our quantum pattern. High above the Earth, Captain Raj Patel led his squadron through a sky that defied description. The alien ships were breaking apart, their crystalline structures unable to maintain coherence as the quantum pulse forced them fully into Earth's dimension. "All wings, pull back," he ordered, watching as reality itself seemed to fracture and reform around them. "Get clear of the crystalline cities." The Vex'kar's response came not as a message, but as a psychic blast that reached every human mind, transformed or not, impossible. Your species cannot maintain both individual and collective quantum states. You must choose. But humanity was choosing something the Vex'kar hadn't thought possible. As the quantum pulse continued to resonate through their network, transformed humans began to assert their individuality while maintaining their connection to the collective consciousness. Professor Adams, still leading the hybrid forces in Lagos, suddenly straightened. His voice, when it came, was his own again. Yinka, we can feel them. The Vex'kar, they're not just confused, they're afraid. In orbit, Chen realized what was happening. They've never encountered a species that could maintain individual identity within a collective consciousness. Our natural quantum resonance, it's not just fighting the transformation, it's changing the nature of their network. The ISS shuddered violently as another wave of quantum energy washed over it. Sarah, Marcus called out, the station's breaking up. We need to evacuate. Not yet. Sarah replied, making final adjustments to the solar array configuration. We need to maintain the amplitude of Earth's magnetic field for just a few more minutes. Across the globe, the crystalline cities began to lose their coherence. The spatial tiers that had allowed the Vex'kar to maintain their multidimensional existence were collapsing, forced closed by the combination of human quantum resonance and Earth's amplified magnetic field. In Montana, Emily Watson watched as the transformed humans near her clinic began to revert to their original forms. But they weren't just returning to normal, they were changing into something new, something that maintained a connection to both individual and collective consciousness. The protein structure, she breathed, understanding dawning. It's not just protecting us from them, it's teaching us how to use our own quantum abilities. Jake's monitors confirmed it. The transformation is reversing, but the quantum sensitivity remains. Mom, we're evolving. In Lagos, Yinka Ademola's instruments registered a massive spike in quantum activity. The final phase is beginning. Everyone, brace yourselves. The Vex'kar made one last attempt to maintain control. The crystalline cities pulsed with blinding energy as they tried to force complete consciousness transfer. But humanity's natural quantum resonance, amplified by the pulse and strengthened by their protein structure, created an unexpected effect. Instead of humanity being absorbed into the Vex'kar collective, the alien consciousness began to fragment, unable to maintain its rigid collective structure in the face of humanity's more flexible quantum state. They're breaking apart. Thomas shouted, watching his readings. Their collective consciousness can't handle individual awareness. Professor Adams and the other hybrids began to glow as the final quantum cascade reached its peak. We can feel it, he announced, his voice filled with wonder. The Vex'kar, they're experiencing individuality for the first time. In orbit, Chen watched as the massive alien network began to dissolve. All units, this is it. The spatial tears are collapsing. Whatever's going to happen, happens now. The quantum pulse reached its crescendo, creating a feedback loop through the Vex'kar's own network. The crystalline cities shattered, not into physical debris, but into quantum patterns that rained down like starlight across the Earth. As the ISS began its final structural failure, Sarah and Marcus made it to their escape pod. Looking back at Earth through the pod's window, they witnessed something extraordinary. The transformed humans were returning to their original forms, but they retained a faint crystalline quality, not in their physical bodies, but in their quantum signature. And in the sky, the remaining Vex'kar ships were changing too, their rigid crystalline structures becoming more organic, more individual. They're adapting, Marcus realized. Just like we are. The final message from the Vex'kar was different from their previous communications. It came not as a collective voice, but as countless individual whispers. We understand now. Optimization was never needed. Evolution comes from diversity, not uniformity. We will return not as harvesters, but as equals. As Christmas Day drew to a close, humanity began to understand what they had gained. The protein structure that had protected them had also awakened dormant quantum abilities. The transformed humans who returned brought with them knowledge from their brief connection to the collective consciousness. And the Vex'kar, changed by their encounter with human individuality, withdrew not in defeat but in transformation. In Montana, Emily hugged Jake as they watched the last crystalline structures dissolve into the night sky. Not exactly the Christmas present I was expecting, she said with a tired smile. Are we really evolving? Jake asked, looking at his hands where faint crystalline patterns still shimmered at a quantum level. "We always were," Emily replied. "We just needed something to remind us of our potential." In Lagos, Yinka Ademola and her team began the process of documenting everything they had learned. "The quantum physics papers from this are going to be interesting," Thomas joked, earning tired laughs from the exhausted scientists. Captain Raj Patel landed his fighter for the last time, the sky finally clear of alien structures. But he knew, as they all did, that this was just the beginning. As rescue ships approached the ISS escape pod, Sarah Chen and Marcus Rodriguez watched the Earth spin below them, its quantum signature forever changed by the events of the past 2 days. "Merry Christmas, Marcus," Sarah said softly. "Merry Christmas, Sarah," he replied. "Think they'll believe us when we tell them what really happened?" "Probably not," she smiled. "But that's okay. The important thing is that we remember." And remember they would. The Christmas Eve when aliens came not just to invade, but inadvertently to help humanity take its next evolutionary step. The day when humanity proved that strength comes not from conformity but from the beautiful complexity of individual minds working in harmony. The Vex'kar had come to optimize humanity, but in the end, humanity had optimized them instead. And as the first stars began to appear in the clearing sky, they twinkled with a new quality, a promise of future meetings between equals, of discoveries yet to come, and of a universe far more wonderful and strange than anyone had imagined. It was, without a doubt, a holiday to remember.